Welcome to the Interfaith Council for Peace in the Middle East in Ohio. We are a small group of concerned individuals who care about peace in the Middle East, particularly in Palestine. We formed in 2003 for that purpose and are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We work toward educating and informing people about the realities of modern life in the Middle East. We have marched in parades, we have made presentations at churches and libraries, and in individual people's homes. We set up information tables at gatherings concerning these issues. We also have a Facebook page and collaborate with other local organizations to host speakers, presenters, and the like to the greater public. We are very pleased now to provide video recordings of our efforts around a family table, talking about who we are and why we care and how we relate to other people just like you. Two of our members are Palestinian women, original members of the Nakba, who as children were forcibly evicted from their homes. Their stories will be told here today.
Good evening. I am Nahida Halaby Gordon, and this is my story. And I'm joined here by Marlene. And between the two of us, we want to talk about what it was like to be Palestinian and to have lost our homes. We didn't leave because we wanted to leave. We left because we were forced to leave. My family was living in Jaffa at the time, and the Israelis were bombing regularly for the simple reason is they wanted to get rid of us. And we lasted until almost 1948. And the final push that convinced my father that we should go to safety is one of the bombing raids hit a church across the street. It was literally across the street from our house. And part of the church's roof came down, and my father decided that it was just too dangerous to remain. So he thought, well, we'll go to Lebanon early. We always went to the mountains to get away from the heat of the coast in Jaffa. And we would return when school began in September. So this was in April, about April 22. We got in the car it was a small car, a British Rover. It didn't have much of anything in it other than ourselves. And there were 6 of us, my parents, myself, and 2 brothers and sister. And we left, and my memory of leaving Jaffa was coming across some houses that were on fire. And this is the first time I've seen a house on fire, which was a little bit frightening. And we arrived at a point, and there was this Israeli soldier in the way. And my mother said, "Do you think they're going to let us out?" We were going to the airport. And we didn't know at the time is that they really wanted us to leave. Of course they would let us out. So we flew to Beirut. We arrived very late at night. I remember the excitement of the steps being brought up to the airplane and going down. And we then went to stay in Suq al-Gharb. It's a little village up in the mountains of Lebanon. And we stayed there all summer. Of course, my father went back very briefly to Jaffa to see what he could do. And he was there very close to the first part of May. He stayed there for 2 weeks. He couldn't do much of anything. He tried to make sure that our house and its goods and his store, which was below our house, was safe. And he drove his car back to Beirut and had quite an adventure driving up there. He was shot at, but he managed to get through. The whole thing is we weren't allowed to return, and that's against international law. Yeah. International law says that anybody has a right to leave or enter their country. And even though it's an international law, the country or the power that controls your country determines whether you can exercise your right. And of course, Israel doesn't want us to come back. And then they tried all kinds of things to steal our homes and our money and so forth. They passed a law about absentee property. And they did, so you have to define what an absentee is. And basically, anyone of Arab origin who had property anywhere in Palestine and was not at his home was defined as an absentee. Okay, so the solution seems simple. We'll go back and we'll be at home. Of course, they wouldn't let you be back. They shut on site. People tried to get back. A few people made it back. The children of my father's best friend were able to make it back. That's another whole story. But it was very difficult. But they didn't stop there. If your area was being bombed and you went to your cousin or to your aunt or to your uncle's house in a safer area, you were declared an absentee because you weren't at your house. And if that isn't enough, if that didn't catch enough people in their net, in Jaffa, according to a report by Al Jazeera, they got, by later in 48, there were about 5,000 people left in Jaffa. They rounded up a lot of them, put them in an area around with a barbed wire, and they were declared absentee. They were forcibly removed from their homes and were an absentee, and so their properties were forfeited. Now, people who stayed within the borders of Israel, but were not at their home, were called present absentees. It's sort of an oxymoron. They were still absentees even though they were around in the country, and they still can't have their properties back. But that's not enough. They froze all the money in the banks. And if you had an account, let's say a few $100s or a few thousand, not dollars, sorry, pounds, or a few £1,000s, you couldn't access your money. So some of the refugees who managed to get out of Palestine went to Ramallah, for example. There's a story about a young fellow, 14 years old, was the only surviving male in his family, the oldest surviving. His father and uncles were all murdered by the Israeli troops. He went to the bank, the Arab bank no less, and wanted his money. But he had 700 pounds. They wouldn't give it to him. Why? It was frozen. He didn't understand. What do you mean frozen? Well, it's frozen. We're not allowed to give out any money. This affected my father as well, and a lot of people. They didn't stop at your money. They also took everything in your safety deposit box, jewelry, cash money, anything like that. And the Palestinians didn't stand for this. They kept complaining and complaining. They sued the Arab bank. There were two other British banks, and they didn't get anywhere. They told them we just can't do anything. We were operating within the government of Israel, and they say the funds have to be frozen. So two young lawyers got 50 different Palestinians to put in lawsuits, and they were smart enough to go into Jordan, to the courts in Jordan, which was not under the control of England or the United Kingdom or the United States or Israel. And the banks suddenly saw 50 different lawsuits against them, and these two lawyers won. The Jordanian banks judges decided in their favor. And so they were forced to unfreeze the money and give the money back. But Israel said, well, we don't have the money anymore, we spent it already. So the banks lent 200,000 pounds, in that time that's a lot of money, to the Israelis at very low interest rate, so they could then have the permission to compensate the Palestinians. My father had a small amount of money, $970 pounds, in one of the banks, and it wasn't until 1956 till he got some of the money back.
Wow.
1956. So if you really depended on your money, and my father had to hire lawyers to do this. So if you were a poor person, had just a few pounds in, you were really out of luck. So besides taking your property, not allowing you to get back, they stole your money, they stole your jewelry from your safety deposit boxes. And that it's going on since then, and they are trying very hard to get rid of us as people. They make life very difficult, and so people want to emigrate out of Palestine, and a whole bunch of them did. Now, I don't know if any of you have any questions, or if you would like to say some things, Marlene, because you experienced this.
Listening to your story, it's very similar to mine.
Yeah.
The thing is that we left Jerusalem. I left with my uncle and my aunt. I happened to live with them, and they had a hotel across the street from the King David.
Mm.
And
Was that the Semiramis?
no, Semiramis was in Catamon.
Oh, okay.
That was Saint Julian. And it was, I think we stayed like 6 months not being able to get out of, go in the street. They were just killing people across in the streets. And the British were just watching them, doing nothing, because they knew their mandate was over. So they let the Jews and the Palestinians fight. So it was just nerve-wracking, and we said, well, they are going to settle, they are going to divide Palestine between the Jews and the Palestinians. So we said, in the meanwhile, we can't stand it, we're going to go to Egypt for 15 days. So my uncle, my aunt, and myself left for Egypt. We drove with our car, and we left my other members of the family in charge of the hotel. So when we got to Egypt, after a while, nothing happened. They just decided that the Jews would take over. So I remember a lot of my family's uncle, aunts who were living in Catamon, in Talbiye, and all these places. They went with, actually it was the Red Cross. We don't know who was in the Red Cross, but saying, people, you have to leave your homes. It's not safe. You will come back. Just take a little something with you and leave your homes, and you will come back. So one of my aunts who was staying in the hotel stayed as much as she could. There were bombs all over, shot through the windows or whatever. And they stayed in the basement on the stairs for 15 days. Then the Red Cross came and told them, you cannot stay here, it's not safe. We are going to take you to the YMCA. So they took them to the YMCA. From then on, we didn't see anything. The rest of my family went to the old city, because they said, just go wherever you can to be safe, and then you will come back. So they went in the old city with a little suitcase, just overnight suitcase, and of course they never were able to go back to their homes. So everybody lost everything. My father and my mother, my two brothers and sisters were in Nablus, which was not touched yet. So my whole family went to Nablus, and they had an apartment of 3 bedrooms, and I think there were 5 families with their children in this house for 2 months. Then they started going to Lebanon. Some of them started going to Lebanon, some of them started to go to Jordan, and of course nobody got anything back, got lost everything you had. And I was separated from my parents and my brothers and sister for 3 years. I couldn't go back. We're in Egypt. There was no connection between the 2 countries. So I stayed 3 years, and then finally they opened through Jordan. Jordan has taken part of the city of the old city of Jerusalem and part of it. There was a no man's land that was separating, and they could see what was happening because you go up on the roof of any house in the old city and you can see what's happening on the west side. And they could see, my aunt was telling me, I was 10 years old, my aunt was telling me, they took all your clothes, your toys, your everything, and put them on the curb. And we could see them. And we could see, so they got rid of everything and took over. That's about, what can I say? It's just like robbery. Taking over the homes of people by telling them it's not safe to stay where you are. Just go in the old city and stay a couple of days with whoever you know, and then you will come back. So that did not happen. Most of the people went to the old city, and the churches, the Holy Sepulchre, gave them each family a room, one bathroom in the end of the hallway for everybody. And they had to sleep, cook, live in one room that was given to them by the church. So the old city was still for Arabs. They weren't able, the Jews weren't able to go to their temple or anything like that. Until, so we were under, how would I say, the Jordanian government, and we even started having Jordanian passports.
And we actually can be Jordan. If we want to, we can get Jordanian citizenship.
You had a Jordanian citizen?
We did. I never got a Jordanian. My sister did. Yes.
I had a Jordanian citizenship, and we went to Egypt, and what we had left was one car. That was the only amount money we had, is the car. So we sold the car, and my uncle went in association with another person who had immigrated to open a little restaurant. But then it got, in 1952 they ousted the King Farouk, and the British had to leave. So they started burning Cairo. And our little restaurant, we were living up top, just 2 rooms. And across from the seat there was the club of the British generals or whatever. So they started burning just across the street. And the restaurant that my uncle had bought was called Tommy. So of course it's British. So I was in the bathroom, and my aunt told me, get out they are going to burn the house. I said, I can't go out. I have to finish my shower. No, you can't. So just got something on, left the house, went at the corner of the street, and our house was in flames.
Wow.
So again, we lose the little we had. So we stayed with another aunt that was in Cairo, and they started giving retribution to some people. The governor, after a few months, they started giving some money to the people who had their homes burned. So we were part of it. Then I was able to go to see my parents in a little two people plane that went up and down. I don't know how they got me on this, so I went to visit my family. And I would go back to Egypt because I started going to school. So that's where we left. We stayed in Egypt 15 years, and that's where I finished school and got married, had my 3 children there. And then they started in Egypt to have also social problems. And Samir's phone was, how do you say, taped? Tapped, yeah. And he just couldn't live safely. He was afraid they were starting to take people, Gamal Abdel Nasser, and this and that, taking people in the middle of the night, putting them in prison with no reason.
Why was Dad's phone tapped?
Huh?
Why was Dad's phone tapped?
I don't know.
Because of Yusuf?
You want to find
I don't know.
It just was?
It's just at random.
It was random.
At random. So we said, okay, there's nothing we can do. We are going to leave the country. We'll go to the States. And in the meanwhile, there was the 6-day war. So the 6-day war stopped everything. Because he was born in Paris, he was on the French, how do you call it? French immigration list. So he was able to leave quickly. Otherwise, it would be years until you were able to come to the States. But at the time, the States needed a lot of physicians, and they were importing a lot of physicians from everywhere.
Are you talking about Samir? Are you talking about Samir?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I remember the day that he had his office in our apartment.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
The 3 of us kids needed to get vaccinated to come to the U.S. And I remember we had to stand in line waiting for Dad to give us the vaccination and just wondering, where are we going? Yeah.
So we ended up coming here, and
Yeah.
we were grateful, but that my whole family was either in Jordan, Nablus.
We were
Never got to see them for years.
Yeah, we were scattered all over, weren't we?
Some of them went to Lebanon, some of them went to Syria, some of them went to Australia. The people who were able to leave.
My grandmother went to France.
To
No, it
France.
was Italy.
It was Italy? She went to Italy and she was
She fled to.
she was in a nursery, I think. Where was she in?
She fled to
no, like, you know where, I don't know what's called, or nuns, or they were,
Oh,
A convent?
yeah, she
I
was,
think, yeah.
she was in a convent, like they took her in, and then she was, I don't know how long she was there for, but
She went there for a couple. She was there for a while. She grew up there.
yeah,
I think she basically grew up there, and then she finally went back. She married. She lived her rest of her life there. Yeah.
So the thing is that maybe we were lucky enough, you and me, to be able to be here and be
free.
and be safe.
Yeah.
But the pain I have in my heart is what's happening now. That's what.
The thing I get angry about is who made all this possible. You know, the Jewish people themselves who came to Palestine, a lot of them were victims as well.
Yeah.
Who were the victims of? They were victims of the government, the Israeli government, the ruling class in Israel that planned all of this, and the American administration, and Great Britain, the United Kingdom. And they still are continuing to enable what is going on right now.
Absolutely.
And you look at the war in Ukraine, we have a lot of sympathy for them. You look what's happening in the earthquake, we have sympathy for the Syrians. As many of them are really Palestinians, but if they're labeled as Syrians, it's okay. But we Palestinians are somehow labeled as, you know, maybe subhuman. I don't know what it is. But
We already
Or
are.
non-existent.
We already are labeled as subhumans. We're not even considered like Asian. You go to, I mean, in the U.S. we're not even considered anything. We're just considered white in the U.S. or anywhere.
Middle East.
Because I mean, if you check off anywhere, it's always Caucasian, Asian, African American, or Latino or Latina.
Yeah.
That's it. You have no identification.
we have no identification. And I'm a Presbyterian. The Presbyterian Church, we had to fight to make a designation of Middle Eastern. We finally have that. So yes, you're right. And so that's one thing that upsets me. All we have suffered is due to these three governments: the Israeli government, the United States, and the United Kingdom. They are the ones who are responsible. The first sin was by the United Kingdom. And I've been looking at the history of Palestine from about the First World War, and what the British did. They just planned the whole thing. They decided to help. In my opinion, they wanted to get rid of the Jews. So send them out to Palestine, give it to them, give them a home, train them, disarm the Palestinians. They did everything they could to disarm us. Every time we tried to do something, like the first Intifada was in 1936, lasted for 3 years. They killed thousands of Palestinians, put them in jail, and they disarmed the Palestinians. So everything we tried to do, they stop us. Why? I think because that's an answer. That's a very difficult question. That's a very difficult answer to find. Why is the media so pro-Israel? They're exceptional people. God gave them the land. They're going back home to Palestine, Israel. And my answer to that is, the Jews never left Palestine. They became Christians during the Byzantine era.
Yeah.
And then they converted to Islam when Islam and Arabic came to Palestine. Our ancestors are Jews. We're the ones who belong to the land, not these Europeans who came from somewhere else. So
The irony of the story is that after World War II, the Palestinians were the most people who accepted the Jews that came. And the British were saying to the Jews, that's enough. You are exceeding the number of people who are coming in. So there was animosity between the Jews and the British until they converted the British to their own cause.
well, I think the British were of two minds. Some of them were Zionists from way back and supported what was going on.
Yeah.
And there were some British that saw what was going on and disapproved. You know, I've been looking at the history before the British came. The old city was never divided. I was shocked when I heard this. Was never divided into Muslim, Christian, Armenian, and Jewish. It was one city. People even enjoyed each other's feasts. The Jews and the Muslims and the Christians. When the British came in, they decided to divide the city into four quarters, and saw all this dissension between the groups. It's that old thing of let's divide. And that's the best way to conquer these people. Let's divide them. Let's have them fight each other. I see you have my book.
Yeah, I was referencing it because in your agreement, the instructions to the Arab population, this figure,
Yeah, those were papers that my father, the Haganah was in Jaffa in 1948 in May, and they passed those papers out to reassure everybody. They told them to congregate between three streets and the shore, and all males had to be there, and if they weren't there, they were going to be punished. And then they pushed them out. They basically pushed them out to the sea.
Yeah.
A lot of them got into boats, went to Gaza or to Beirut, and some boats got capsized. And they were bombing Jaffa regularly. What they did is they attacked a munitions train from the British, and they took all these big heavy guns and things. Now I remember to this day hearing these bombs at night, and it was just downright scary. They didn't have airplanes; they just bombed, and they wanted Jaffa. And even from those days, they had planned things. Jaffa, if you look at it, Tel Aviv was to the north, and had little villages all around it. And they do that right now to all the cities in the West Bank. They put settlements around them so they can't expand.
Yeah.
And they choke them off. They did the same thing to Jaffa way back there in the 40s.
They split Beit Hanina right in half.
Yeah.
That's the city that we're from. They split it right in half. They put a highway right between. Now there's a lower half Beit Hanina and there's a higher half. But what's sad is it used to take 2 minutes to get it right up there. Now it takes 45 minutes to get the lower half.
Because of their highway.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
where is
there's
the
a
wall
wall.
in
And the wall.
relation to Beit Hanina?
Where's the wall?
Yeah.
Oh, it's right there.
Right by the highway.
Oh, it's right there.
It's right there.
You could stand outside your house. It's right there.
Yeah. You can.
There's a door that opens up, but that's only for the Israelis to use for force. This door only opens when they want to open, and that door can literally go right across to.
And from where our grandmother's and grandfather's houses, you could see from the distance of like at night when we used to go there, you'd still see kids plan out nights and throw tires on fire, fireworks, stones.
I saw a field, in front of my grandma's house is a field, and that's farm, and it's farm slash you can literally see that's where the Israelis, Jewish people live, that's where they are staying at. And it's so sad how it's such a developed city, a beautiful city. You see across, you see beautiful cars, all this stuff, and you go look on our side, it's nothing like that.
It's out loud. When I went, I got to see a 13-year-old driving a car. There's no traffic. There's no
traffic laws.
There's no trash system either. So yeah.
There was trash system, but it only came once a month. Remember,
Yeah,
we bring the
once a
garbage
month.
cans every month.
So I'm curious to ask both of you, how do you feel about all of this, as vis-a-vis the Israeli government and the future for you as your personal future?
Well, the personal future is whatever the land that we have now will be turned over to my name. I will not refuse. I will not lose those pieces of land. I will not. I will be on my name. I'm an American citizen. I'm born here. You're gonna take American citizens' land, but you let American citizens live there. Consider me, I'm untouchable, quote unquote. I've been born here in America, Lakewood, Ohio, Metro Hospital. You know what I'm saying? So you can't really. So that's why, how I feel is, I'm not gonna lose whatever I have.
You're talking about what you have here in the United States?
No, back home. My
Okay.
parents have houses there.
Okay.
My grandmother and my dad, both sides have houses. So, it's our, it's gonna transition to our side of it because I want my kids to go to these homes,
Yeah.
and for the futures, I don't want this to be gone. I want my kids to understand where my parents came from, my grandparents came from. This needs a consistent thing, and it's terrible to see that's slowly diminishing in front of our eyes every day.
It's not safe there anymore.
It's not safe, but at the end of the day, I'll take the risk anytime to get back. It's just my, it's the whole Jerusalem. This is the whole point of it. I want to go see, Al-Aqsa. This is very important things to see in my life and for my future, for the future of Islam, just in general. Being able to have access to go there and able to pray and go there because they don't sometimes let you pray. They blow you up while you're in the middle of prayer, blow up big doors. They do what they want. They do it all the time, but. But you still see Palestinians go every day because they will not stop that fight because that's ours and we will not stop till there's one left standing at that point. That's how we are out there, and that's how I am here. Even though I'm here in America and I'm blessed to be in a good country that's take care of one another, but then there's a lot of our tax dollar goes somewhere else that should be here. Am I right? I mean, I'm just saying I'm thinking billions of dollars you want to give it to some other country, but that $1 billion is not going to come back. I think. So there goes all that when there's people that need so much work done here, they just stop. They just want to give it out somewhere else, and that somewhere else is now a genocide and killing us left and right. And it's okay. That's what they say. It's okay. It's not. But then if two Palestinians kill 7 Jews, it goes all over the place. But then if Israelis kill 250 in one night, it gets closed doors. They don't even know what's happening. It's false information. They were terrorists, but they weren't. They were children. It's okay. That's what they say nowadays. Even like I saw a video of West Bank like 2 nights ago. He was literally walking to school. This kid was walking to school, West Bank barrier. And I'll find this video. And he was just walking it. And they literally ripped his shirt off, hip top slammed him. This kid's 10 years old. And you got 4 grown, professionally trained, armed to kill men on touching him. I mean, I'm just saying, like 10-year-old versus 4 grown men that are ready to kill. Who's gonna win? And they still consider him as a dangerous threat. I'm sorry, he has a rock in his hand, but I'm sorry, you got 3 M16s, you got 2 pistols on your side, you got a grenade on your other hand. I'm sorry, who's deadly now?
Well, it was wonderful having the two of you and interacting with you.
Yes.
It's nice to see young people
I hope to
involved
bring
in
more
all.
of it, as long as that's okay with you guys.
The good thing is that the Palestinian people are continuously educating themselves.
Absolutely.
This is most of the strength of the Palestinian people. Eventually, they are all over the place. And this is how they're going to end up, it's the people who change the politics. It's not the politicians. It's the people.